fancy intro music. Yeah! Woohoo!
USS Relativity is here, Star Trek Fleet Command fans, and what does that mean for you? Well, this video is going to go over the cost of the Relativity, what it takes to upgrade it, unlocking it, basic crewing ideas, because honestly, you don't need specific crews except for a couple things that we've covered before, like these Krenim entities and the formation armadas, and just the overall thoughts of the ship itself. We'll try to go over there with you, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. So if you do enjoy this type of content, go ahead and like the video. It helps out the channel a lot. Let's start with it. I actually want to give you something that we haven't done before, but I think is interesting stuff, and I appreciate y'all. So right here on the screen is actually how the last 4 ships have performed in the 28-hour and the 48-hour leaderboards that come out when they launch. I just think it's interesting information. It doesn't really apply to how to use the ship, but if you're ever curious how many people go after the ship when it first comes out, I do think it'd be a good barometer with how strong the community feels the ship is in terms of performance and usability. And you see this one's slightly lower than the Vindicator, and we'll actually be comparing it to the Vindicator again here in a bit. But let's wrap it out and let's start talking about what this thing is and what it does. The basics of it are pretty simple right here. Anti-charge shift. When this ability is active, it will apply the static state to targets in battle. And then the anti-static shift. When this is applied, it will apply the charged state to targets in battle. But what that simply is saying is whether you're going against the new formation armadas or the Krenim entities, which are kind of like Armadas 2.0, it helps give a buff against those. And you can see that in something like this, where I took a very, very baby one, which is a tier 1 relativity with the Sompek out to a 56 and was able to take it down, even though obviously the ship went down and I was using a very, very basic crew just for Janeway ISO. So the ability then is taking away the need of that exo comp. However, obviously you can still run that in a tier 1 relativity, not necessarily meant to go after the 56 entities, but gives you an idea of how it works because I was able to do this in lieu of an exo comp just by activating the abilities. Now, a good thing about this ship that I do wanted to note is that for the first time in a long time, we have a ship with an ability that does not cost currency. To use the abilities, you simply activate them. So in this case, I'll activate the anti-static shift, and this will last here for 20 minutes, and there's a simple cooldown from when you can shift again. So there's no currency involved, and I think a lot of players are going to like that because so often, especially ships, get inundated with currency. Like, I love the Cerritos, but the Cerritos, and then limited on how much you can actually use it. There is no limit on the relativity, so that is a nice thing. Saw something else that's nice about the relativity. With a lot of these ships coming out here recently, one of the negatives I would say has been the firing pattern of a lot of ships, especially as you go up in level. Firing pattern just feels underwhelming. Not so much with the relativity. I actually think it has a very nice firing pattern. And for all of you G6 players out there, you're really going to appreciate it because y'all's firing patterns are terrible. Like, we're not trying to be mean, but not firing a shot in the first round? Like, what's up with that? What's the logic? You have to ask Scopely, not me. But in terms of overall use, yeah, firing pattern is quite decent. So that's actually pretty nice. Another thing that I think is nice about this is actually how you unlock it. And that is a free-to-play path, day 1, that hopefully all of you who are level 42 and above are currently working on in the DTI faction. Now, you do need to be the detective rank, but if you are, what you're going to see is this handy-dandy option right here. I'm going to blow it up, make it big so you can see it. Now, you have a static one that you can run and a charged one you can run every day to get 2 blueprints a day, thus a 100-day unlock time. And if you're doing all the maximum pulls for the resources needed to upgrade the ship, it's right under a year to max it out, assuming you're the appropriate levels. There are level locks on the ship. Just a quick FYI for those that did not know, there are some level locks. For example, to get to tier 6, you need to be at least level 51 and above. And then to get to tier 11, you need to be 61 and above. So there are tier locks to this. So kind of bear that in mind, not trying to say that's a good or a bad thing. I know a lot of people really dislike that, the tier lock system, but it is there. So just kind of bear that in mind. In fact, we can go ahead and put that on the screen. Let's go ahead and do this as an opportunity to usher in cost. This is the cost of the ship itself. Now, is this overwhelmingly expensive? Yes and no. What you'll notice specifically if you're one of our higher level viewers, if you're in the upper 50s or upper 60s, you'll see that the cost definitely starts to grow. And I would not say it is an expensive ship. Keep in mind that you're looking at raw cost here. If we're talking about tiering up, it is quite pricey. I mean, uncommon gas, 260,000 4-star. Even though that's a raw cost, that's not exactly a drop in the bucket. But if you get down to the like really expensive stuff at the very bottom, that's what really gets you. The 6-star, it's 58,000 rare. That's a lot. 740,000 uncommon G6 gas. That's a lot. But more importantly, especially for you high level players, 114 million Sigma Tritanium. Max this out. Now for lower levels, still take a look at the G4, G5 here. Call us mid level players, not really lower level players anymore, mid level players, but still costs a little bit up there. Kind of bear that in mind as you're going through how far you're going to progress it. But in terms of ability, that is something I do want to point out is that yes, there is a higher cost, but also is a stronger ship than a lot of ships down here, and even at tiering up. That cost is, associated with it having stronger base stats than a lot of specialty ships. So it is a early on one-trick pony. However, as it progresses, as we've seen with things like the NSEA, actually will have stronger power to actually use for general usage. Now, am I encouraging you to use it as a PvP ship? No, I'm not. Simply letting you know that if you invest in it, it's not going to be something like a Franklin that will literally only be applicable to swarms. It will have the potential to get into other forays if you so choose, which as a design point, I think is a positive, even if I'm not trying to sit here and argue that it is a great ship. Again, that was the whole point of me showing you the sales of the first 48 hours, but I do want you to know what it's capable of. And it does have good base stats, solid DPR, good hull numbers, and as it scales up, it will beef up a little bit, and obviously helping you with those formation armadas for your alliance and the entities. But I want to talk about cost comparison real quick. And here you can see the Protector and the Relativity side by side. So we have this in our spreadsheet. Of course, I linked it in the last video, but I'll go ahead and link it again down in the comment section down below. Hopefully y'all enjoy the spreadsheets. We've been doing that all day long today. But thank y'all for those who do enjoy them. So 4-star, you see, it's actually cheaper in some ways when it comes to the total cost of uncommons and stuff in G4. And then you see that cost escalate in G5. And then, of course, down here we have the G6, more expensive than the NSEA Protector. Starts off cheaper, does get more expensive as time goes on. And again, take a look at the top cost up here. Sure, a little bit cheaper in dilithium, standard dilithium, and standard tritanium a little bit more. But again, if you're a G6 player, watch out for the amount of Sigma materials needed. That could come as a bit of a shock and a surprise to a lot of players. However, it's my job to tell you what it is. Back over to the regular screen with our Q-Snap. So what can we use the Relativity for? Well, simple as that. If you get the Relativity, whether you free-to-play path it or whether you go after it immediately, you're going to be doing the Krenim entities and the formation armadas, using crews like this, Dejas Torah, Toli, Marco, or even simplistic crews like this that are a little bit more available to everybody with Pipe Moreau Janeways or Picard Beverly Janeway type setups to simply magnify abilities if you don't have a lot of those officers. When it comes to other forms of use, then you're going to go back into the DTI faction. This is where you're also going to see a lot of value from owning this ship. For example, the Relativity Daily Claim, simply giving you more of the both types of credits, both charged and static, that you need to go after various things, like the researches, like, for example, all the goodies that are in here, like officers and missing artifacts that were originally there. Still working to follow up on that, but all these things that have value that players are going to be looking for and wanting, and of course, the favor system. The Relativity is going to drastically increase your ability to procure those items, thus helping you progress faster in the DTI faction, which I think a lot of people knew as a given, but worth mentioning and telling out to all those who didn't know. So actually sourcing those credits, making it easier. And then of course you have the particles needed to upgrade the ship itself. And then it does have its own research tree. Now, I personally am going to argue that the research tree is maybe the weakest part of the ship itself, because it's almost all entirely based around itself. What I mean by itself, well, it doesn't really give any benefits except for a small, way down the line, shield and hull health boost. And I know I'm saying small about 1500%, but y'all know in today's game, first of all, 1500% is way down the road. And with all the other things in the game now, that's just simply not a lot. Now, it does have other good abilities for helping you progress through the DTI loop itself, such as the warp range to attend more armadas. You see, I'm currently locked out at 4 out of 10, but it is cheap, and I love that it has the quick turnarounds, and it was like 30 seconds to get that done. Then you see the loot for Krenim invading entities. That is a bonus, again, using the Relativity to get that bonus. And then, of course, you have the damage creation and then go down the tree. Most of this is specific to the Relativity, though, which is, to me, a bit of a drawback. A lot of the good specialty ships that have come out in the past affect more than just their loot. In fact, this is a great example right here. Look at the Vindicator giving bonuses to upgrading buildings and efficiency while also improving its own self for the Revenant, the Vindicator as well, having good things that can apply to more than just itself, like the ISO, which is far more beneficial having ISO damage than maybe having a little bit of shield health added to your ship, just my personal opinion, and even ISO for all ships versus all armada. So very limited into what it currently affects. Maybe they flesh it out and add more to it, but that's what the Relativity is right now. A solid ship to pick up that I would recommend free-to-play pathing. You can do whatever you want with that, of course. So I'm just here to give you the information on how it works. Solid ship, really high base stats, a little bit higher cost to coincide with that, but down the road may be useful for you. Let me know what you think down in the comment section down below. Live long and plunder. Stay safe with those space cowboys. Deuces, that's me. Catch you on the next Star Trek League video. And as always, thank you for being who you are, where you are. See you tomorrow.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.